Our entire region is in the midst of a long heat wave with temps near 100 degrees in many areas. And now some renters say they're being threatened with eviction if they install AC units.
I just want to keep my air conditioner. And so do these other people.
An inspiring number of you have come forward saying you want to help them stay cool. Plus,
I didn't know if his parents still loved him. He also was abused, beaten if he spoke his language.
Pacific Northwest tribes say the Pope's apology for Indigenous boarding schools is too little, too late. Here's the story. I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. We have quite a variety of stories for you tonight, but it's blazing hot out there again, so we are going to start with air conditioning. Let's go. If you don't have some sort of air conditioning tonight, I feel bad for you. Well, unless, of course, your name is Dean Sawyer, a friend of the show and the mayor of Newport. He wrote in last night to let me know it was 64 degrees there. Thanks, Dean. But I digress. Unless you live on the coast, it's likely hot outside your window right now. Last night we told you about a group of women living in low-income apartments in Newberg. Each has or had a window air conditioner, and each was told to get rid of it or face eviction. Apparently they're considered fire hazards, maybe because they block the window and it would be hard to get out during a fire. But the timing of all that is pretty crummy. Your response, though, not crummy at all. Heartwarming. Here's one phone message that came in after the story from Lori.
It seems very ridiculous to me that these folks are even having to consider this. They have enough worries in their life, and just the heat alone coming with the AC units they've got is a challenge.
I totally agree, Lori. She wanted to know if the governor's heat emergency could override the federal housing rules that are forcing the women to take their air conditioners down. I don't know for sure, but I kind of doubt it. And then I looked at your emails offering both help and hope. Ed wrote in to say, I want to be sure you get this before any of the Newberg people are evicted. I would be happy to purchase a floor AC unit for someone who is being threatened with eviction and can't afford a floor unit. And Steve had a similar reaction, writing in, my wife Kathy and I would be willing to assist one of the homes featured on the story in Newberg with the purchase of a unit. A caller who wanted to remain anonymous also wants to help.
I would be willing to pay for one of those air conditioner units for a person living out there in Newberg.
And that's not all. So far, I've counted 6 or 7 of you who are offering to buy a floor unit for the women in the apartments there in Newberg. And I know our newsroom took several more calls asking how you can donate. Thank you. Thank you so much for your generosity. We don't have all the details worked out yet, but we will, and we will contact you soon with a plan. And if you're interested in helping, you can send an email to thestory@kgw.com, and we'll get you in touch, we think, with the women in Newberg who need the floor AC units. I've also heard from others who are seniors on low income and cannot afford air conditioners. We can't help everyone, but we will do what we can. In the meantime, when you hear others say things like, people suck, or the world's going to hell in a handbasket, remember that it's really not. It's really full of good people like you, willing to step up when you can. And by the way, it's no big deal when you can't. We're all part of the community here. We're all sharing our communal story. And while we're talking about cooling, we know the city of Portland has a free air conditioner program. It's getting hundreds of units installed in the city now. And now the Oregon Health Authority is getting into the act, distributing 500 air conditioners in recent days to 3 community groups who are bringing cool air to grateful folks. It comes from $5 million in tax money, funding that was passed earlier this year by the state legislature in response to last summer's deadly heat wave. Here's Daisy Caballero.
I am ecstatic, absolutely grateful and ecstatic and thankful.
Tracy Fravel has lived in her East Portland apartment for the last 29 years, and not once has she owned air conditioning. That's until today.
I couldn't believe it. We got an email from my lady at my church and said it, and I was actually Skyping with a friend in Scotland. And I said, and she says, what? I said, I'm seeing some email about a free wood, and because I kept thinking, I am not going to be able to afford air conditioning. There's just no way I can do it. I don't have that kind of money.
Earlier this year, Oregon legislatures passed Senate Bill 1536, which allocates $5 million to buy air conditioners for high-risk Oregonians like Tracy.
As soon as they come in, they're going right back out.
That's Caleb Butler. He works at the Portland Open Bible Church, one of the community groups helping install the units. He tells me this is his 11th delivery so far, and he's taking every installation to heart, knowing he's a helping hand in stopping heat-related deaths.
Our goal this year is to have 0 deaths. I mean, as best we can. That's our ultimate goal.
The Open Bible Church has received a little over 350 units within the last few days. OHA intends to install 3,000 units this summer throughout the state with the help of community groups. As for Tracy, she tells me she no longer has to worry about her home reaching 99 degrees like it did last year during the historic heat wave that resulted in the deaths of nearly 100 people.
I truly never thought I would see this day. I thought I was either going to okay, credit card, put myself in debt more, or a lot more fans. So this is just incredible to me. I'm thankful to everybody who was involved in getting it.
Yeah, that's nice. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino. You said yesterday we might hit a record, and it sounds like we have today, yes?
We did, yeah. We hit 101, Pat, eclipsing the old record, which was only set 2 years ago in 2020, eclipsing it by 1 degree. Here's a list of some of the record highs that either fell or were tied today. Portland, Chowtail, Hood River all setting new records and eclipsing the old ones by a degree or two. 104 in Hood River. Hillsborough tied its record at 101, and impressively, the Dalles had to get to 111 to tie its record, and it did. So super hot all around the region. Another record that fell today, or at least was tied, was in Salem. They hit 103 in our state's capital there. So super hot all over the place. The Dalles, by the way, tying its record for the second day in a row. Medford at 106 just missing out. So hot everywhere inland from the coast. The coast nice and cool. In fact, Newport, believe it or not, didn't even hit 60 today, with a high of 59 and all the fog out there. In Portland, we're still at that 101 record. Temperatures will begin to fall in the next hour or so. But I tell you what, not only is it hot, you probably notice it's getting hazier and hazier. Our air quality is getting worse and worse because we're living with a stagnant air mass. There's no ventilation. We're not replacing the air with new air coming in from the west, let's say. So the air quality is going to get worse and worse. Now, most of our reporting sites still showing good air quality. A couple in the Portland, though, have reached the unhealthy for sensitive group category. So again, we are going to continue to see the air quality decline. And for that reason, there's an air quality warning here until Wednesday. That may be extended. In fact, I'm sure it will be. And the excessive heat warning has now been extended until Saturday because this heat wave just isn't going to want to let go very easily. So excessively hot through Saturday. Very warm overnight lows in the upper 60s to about 70. We should finally stay below 90 beginning on Sunday. But boy, it's going to be a long trudge into the latter part of the weekend, Pat.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Well, yesterday we had a crew out in the weather telling the story of a group called PDX Saints Love. They were offering a free cooling station to anyone who needed it in Lentz Park. As our crew was wrapping up the shoot, a man named Joshua Sears attacked our photographer. There was no provocation. Another member of our crew snapped this shot as Sears jumped over a picnic table to chase and then punch our photographer at least twice in the face. Here's the damage: a nasty black eye and a cut to the side of the head. I'm highlighting this not because it's outrageous that this guy attacked a member of the press, although I do think it is outrageous. I'm highlighting it because it's yet another example of someone living on the streets. Sears told jailers he's been homeless for 10 years. Another person like that attacking someone for no apparent reason. I asked this question a month ago. I'll ask it again. Why are these people on the streets? Back then, we were talking about a homeless man who wondered about his own mental health. You had plenty of answers about how it's almost impossible to get someone mental health care against their will, and you told me there's a failure from the time residential care facilities get someone healthy and then send them back out onto the streets, that there's a failure and it makes it easy for them to then fall through the cracks. I don't know if Sears has mental health problems, and I don't want to imply right now that he does. But I do think it's ridiculous that he was out on the streets at all. Check this out. He's accused of another random attack just 4 months ago in March. He's accused of hitting a 70-year-old man in the back of the head with a large stick at 13th and East Burnside. In May, the judge said Sears could leave jail after his defense attorney said he would stay at a shelter that helps people end homelessness. How'd that work out? Not well for Sears, and not well for our photographer. And in my opinion, here's another thing you should think about and maybe urge your state lawmaker to take a look at. It turns out if you only use your fist to attack someone, it's a 4th-degree assault, unless you hurt them really bad, like blinding them or knocking out all their teeth. The maximum penalty for that assault is a year in prison, but I'm told it's most likely you won't spend a day locked up. But if you do that same attack with a weapon, that's a 2nd-degree assault, which is much more serious, with a possible Measure 11 mandatory minimum of 70 months. That's nearly 6 years in prison. That's an enormous gap from giving someone a black eye with your fist to giving them a black eye with a rock or a pipe. Lawmakers, in my opinion, should look at that gap and fill it in. There are too many random attacks going on in our area without serious consequences. Remember that Japanese family attacked at random as they visited Portland earlier this month? Well, that was one of those many recent attacks. That one also started out as a 4th-degree assault until someone at the DA's office decided the suspect threw so many punches he was trying to seriously hurt the victim and upgraded the charge to attempted 2nd-degree assault. If Portland is going to return to the vibrant and safe city it once prided itself in being, we're going to have to solve this problem. I don't pretend to have all the answers, and I'm open to your ideas. And you should also let your local lawmaker know this state law does need to change. Send me your thoughts on this. Our email address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a message, 503-226-5090. You know those plastic clamshell containers that you get takeout meals in? Well, they're almost impossible to figure out how to recycle. But there's a young Portland man who's made it his mission to reduce plastic waste.
James, he loves recycling.
James needed a recycling service.
He wanted to do something that was good for the planet, and then it's turned into something that's good for James.
I am proud of you.
Yeah.
When the story continues. A lot of people here in the Pacific Northwest want to recycle, but What to do with all those clamshells? You know, the plastic containers we get from takeout, or how about these plastic cold drink cups you get from places like Starbucks, or maybe empty pill bottles, yogurt containers, on and on and on, all the stuff we can't put in the curbside. Well, Laurel Porter is here to tell us who we're going to call.
Well, Portland's James Harris, Pat, is here to help. He's become kind of a recycling rock star, and he's attracting throngs of people who want to help him save the planet.
They start setting up 90 minutes before showtime. Tents, tables, all right, signs.
I'm excited to come to this event. It's, we've never done it here before.
People have waited months for this. They come from all over and start lining up early.
Yeah. It's just like a yard sale. I mean, everybody doesn't want to wait too long. They want to be first.
For the main attraction.
James Recycling Events.
They know him as James the Recycler.
Yeah.
He's the James. People come to meet him.
The James.
James Neighborhood Recycling Service.
And his traveling James Neighborhood Recycling Event.
Yes, we're at the James Recycling Event, and it's very exciting to be here, and it's very exciting that he does this.
First event we had 85 people.
It
We were so
cool.
excited.
That's right.
And the last one was 540 people, and they get big.
Got it, bud?
They've come to Middleman Jewish Community Center prepared with bags.
And this is just the plastic, so.
And bags.
Yikes.
And bags of items.
I have lots of plastic.
All kinds of numbered plastic.
We've got everything.
Not accepted in curbside recycling bins.
Even these perm bottles can go. I love it. I'd be putting all this stuff in the trash, and I really don't want to do that. I'm so excited to get rid of clamshells.
Clamshells.
This is one, that's one.
That's a plastic number 1.
Lots of it.
And number 2s?
Even these, the beer caps. So
Beer Tech packs.
I collect a lot of these, Fort George.
Some pill bottles and lids.
Number 5, plastics, hard plastics.
Come on up.
James's army of volunteers.
And you got straws.
Making sure everything is washed.
You sorted that whole bag of lids?
And sorted.
That's a lot of work, huh?
Hi, how are you?
The cost to recycle?
2 bags, so $6.
$3 a bag.
1, 2, that is $6.
James has been a lifesaver.
This man runs a catering business for the film industry, producing a lot of plastic waste.
Mostly 5s.
Okay.
6s.
10, 11, 12.
18 bags full.
Is it 54? Okay. Yeah.
54 is not bad, for a month and a half and getting all this stuff out of our landfills. It's worth it, and to support this company.
You have some 5s?
All because James Harris had a dream to help save the planet.
That's a 6, I think. Hey, thanks for coming.
And his mom, Kathy,
All right.
had a dream.
Yeah.
That her son would be able to lead a purposeful life.
It was difficult, very difficult. If you see him now, you wouldn't really believe that where he was at.
At the age of 4, James was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum.
There were lots of struggles with communication and behavior issues.
This is a 6. This is not supposed to be in there.
But then he found his passion, his way to fit in.
This is...
By taking things that didn't fit in.
These are 5s.
To traditional curbside bins.
Yeah.
In the beginning, James, he loves recycling, so he would collect from a few neighbors.
Just like 5 or so.
We first met Kathy and James when James was 18.
Okay.
Long time ago.
They would load up into Kathy's SUV and collect buckets of stuff that might otherwise end up in the trash from a handful of customers in the Bridal Mile neighborhood.
Kind of felt like, hey, this is something we can do.
James?
Yeah.
A few years later, James had more than 200 customers.
James' Neighborhood Recycling Service.
Let's head to Nancy's house, okay?
I knew it was going to get big. I didn't expect it to quite get this big.
And they had to expand into a much bigger van.
Do your thing.
All right.
He's just an amazing young man.
200, now 400.
Now, at 24 years old, James has over 400 neighborhood customers. And he's a recycling rock star.
Yeah.
It's awesome. These recycling events have been great.
It's big. Lots of people.
attracting hundreds to his mega recycling events held all over the Portland metro area.
Oh my gosh, so amazing what the young man has done to make this a huge success.
What it means for me as a mom is that he has a place in the world, he has a job, and that's something that's not easy to come by for somebody on the spectrum.
And Kathy's making sure others on the spectrum with differing abilities have a place too. She wants to hire even more people, like Alex.
And I'm helping James.
Here with his cousin Logan, helping sort number 4s.
It's nice for him to participate and get to learn a skill.
Yeah.
And Sam. Because every big event drawing a crowd needs a DJ. And part of the mission of James Recycling Events is education.
Very educational.
Thanks for sorting so well.
Letting people know they can recycle a lot of what can't go curbside and how to do it.
I think he's going to be a leader in teaching other communities how to do this, because James has been expanding this whole area from different little households to these events over the last 2 years. And he was doing it during the pandemic.
And when people ask, does all this stuff really get recycled?
Oh yes, absolutely, yes.
Nicole Jansen has proof it does. Her company, Denton Plastics, partners with James. James and his mom take all these bags and buckets of discarded stuff to their garage and shred it into millions of multicolored shards of plastic.
It looks full. Oh, it's like sand.
It is like sand.
And then they take it here to Denton Plastics, where they run it through their new clean line and melt it down into pellets, which are sold to other companies to make toys, products for nursery businesses, and construction products like conduit piping. Back at the James Neighborhood Recycling event, they load up 3,000 pounds of plastic that won't be going to the dump, but rather into 2 U-Haul trucks, destined for a new life. The recyclables, like James, transformed.
To see all these people come out to support him and his dream is really, to me as a mom, wonderful.
James and his crew, like roadies after a concert,
Get the tables in.
load up the last of their gear until the next recycling roadshow.
There we go. Yeah, we teach him.
Hoping for even bigger crowds to join James in helping to save the world.
He wanted to do something that was good for the planet, and then it's turned into something that's good for James.
I am proud of you.
Yeah.
I think he's living the dream right now.
Yeah.
The next James Neighborhood Recycling event is this Saturday, July 30th at Exceed Enterprises on Southeast Mallard Way in Milwaukee from 10 to 12:30. And there's another one on August 13th at Columbia Sportswear headquarters. Event details and a video on how to sort your recyclables is available on the James Recycling website. And Pat, they just got nonprofit status, and they're looking for a small warehouse, a small space in Southwest Portland to open a recycling depot if anybody could help out.
Nice. I hope they find one soon. I got to find a place for these.
I'm collecting mine too.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it. Still ahead, the Pope is in Canada this week apologizing for Indigenous boarding schools run by the Catholic Church. But some tribal members say saying sorry is not enough. When the story continues. This week, Pope Francis is in Canada to apologize for the Catholic Church's role in the abuse of Indigenous children in residential boarding schools. From the 19th century up until 1970s, hundreds of thousands of children in the U.S. and Canada were forced to attend government-funded Christian schools. A lot of those children were abused and many actually died at the schools. It happened here in the Portland area as well. Chemehuah Indian School opened in Forest Grove in 1880 before moving to Salem. Native children from all over the region were brought here. PJ Randawa from our sister station in Seattle spoke with some Pacific Northwest tribal members who say the Pope's apology does not go far enough.
The goal of the residential schools was to erase a child's native identity, replace it with Christianity, and forcibly assimilate them into white society. Survivors say physical and sexual abuse were rampant at the schools, and the legacy of abuse and isolation is still felt today. Now, more than 50 years since the closure of the last school, Pope Francis arrived in Canada to formally apologize. The visit comes after the recent discoveries of hundreds of potential mass burial sites at former schools in Canada within the past year.
An apology is the very least that they could do. It also brings back a lot of hard feelings and memories.
Eighth generation CEO Colleen Echohawk described the abuse her uncle endured at the age of 7 during his 2 years in an American residential school.
The hardest things was that he wasn't called by his name. He was called by a number. He thought his name was 77. He didn't know if his parents still loved him. He also was abused, beaten if he spoke his language.
Just last year, King 5's Facing Race found there's currently an effort underway in the United States to find the identities of children buried in unmarked graves at residential schools. Echohawk says the Pope's apology doesn't improve the lives of generations of Native families that have been impacted by what's been called a cultural genocide.
A racial wealth gap does not change for us. It hasn't changed in 100 years. And so we have, I think that the federal government and the Catholic Church and other church entities have a responsibility to that. The impact has created systems of poverty in our communities that they are directly responsible for.
That was PJ Randawa reporting. A recent report from the U.S. Department of Interior found more than 400 Indigenous boarding schools across the country. Oregon had 9 schools and Washington had 15. We'll be right back. For this week's Hey Help campaign, we're asking you to donate to the Arches Project. It's part of the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency. They are a group that help homeless people living in Salem. This week, they're making sure people living on the streets stay cool. If you'd like to donate, just open the camera on your phone and point it at the QR code there on your screen, or you can go to kgw.com/heyhelp. This is a micro donation drive, so feel free to give any amount, no matter how small or how big. That's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. I'll be off for a little bit, but you'll be in good hands with our team. And remember, the story, our story, well, that never ends. We'll see you tomorrow.